The Sikha will be in the Sikha Schedek Chav Ches with the heading of Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tamuz. And it's interesting that in this Sikha we see how the Rebbe is medayik in every word of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and even the Seder of things of what the Frierdiker Rebbe did. Also, everything is meduyik, everything is exact. It starts off with these words. Wie bewusst ist der Gula von Kveidush as Meir v'chomi Admur von sein Verschikung gewähren bei Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tamuz. We know that the redemption of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe said, my father-in-law, from being sent into exile, because first he was imprisoned, and then Gimel Tamuz, he was freed from prison, but he was sent to exile to Kastrama, and then later on he was freed. When was he freed? From prison, even from the exile? And Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tamuz. Now, what does that mean, Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tamuz? Was it Yud Beis Tamuz, the 12th of Tamuz, or was it the 13th of Tamuz? How do you say it happened on both days? So the Rebbe explains, Dienstag Yud Beis Tamuz hat mit dem Rebbe mit die gewesen, als es ist angekommen, die Pkude, ihm zu befreien von der Verschicke in Kostrama. On Tuesday, the 12th of Tamuz, the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, got the information, got the notice that there was given a Pkuda, which means he was given a command from the officers to free him from being sent in exile to Kastrama. But since on that day, the office of the government was closed, it was a legal holiday, a goyish holiday, so the certificate that he's free, they only gave it to him the next day, on Wednesday, Yud Gimel Tamuz. So maybe we consider both days. Really, he was freed on Yud Beis, but practically speaking, it was not free till the 13th of Tamuz, on Wednesday. So maybe we call it Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tamuz. And what happened? Like by Yud Beis Tamuz, the Rebbe gesagt, right away, on Yud Beis Tamuz, as soon as he heard that he's being freed, he said a Maimer Chassidus. And the Maimer Chassidus started with the Posek, Havai Li Be'ezri, which means Hashem is for my helpers, and I will see what will happen to my enemies. The next day, when he was actually freed, when he got a certificate, he was actually freed. He said a Maimer which starts off with the words Baruch Hagemush Chayovim Tev, which is the bracha that we say when a person is freed from jail. He has to make this bracha, which means blessed is Hashem who did Teva is good to somebody who doesn't really deserve it, and thanking Hashem for doing good to me. This was a Maimer that he said the next day. In order 5, the Rebbe says, and then he said another Maimer with same beginning of Hagem Alachayov and Teva, that he said already later on Shabbos, Pashas Pinchos, after he got the Aliyah, and he actually said Baruch Hagemel. But these two in Kastramayet, he said the two Maimer. First, he said the Maimer Avai Beis on Yud Beis Tamuz, and then on Yud Gimel Tamuz, he said the Maimer Baruch Hagem L'Chayom Tevis. The Teichon from Posek Avai Beis when Yer B'Sein B'Pashtes is the meaning, the contents of this Posek, the way the first Maimer started, which is Havai Beis, Hashem is my helpers, and I will see my enemies. In simple pshat is Abakoshef Losi. This is asking a request for the future, which means like this: This is the Posek saying, since Hashem helped me in the past, he helped me, so therefore we're asking what should be in the future. I should see the revenge in my enemies. And the Rebbe will explain later what that means, the revenge. But what this is asking Hashem for something that should happen afterwards. Is an Nesina Schwach Bahidoe, so maybe if an over, if there was Gemlani Tev. But the union of Baruch Hagem L'Chayom Tevis is that we're praising and thanking Hashem for the past, that He did good to me. So Baruch Hagem was thanking Hashem for the good that He did already. And the Vayli Be'eziv is a request for the future. He's influent verstandig, so the Rebbe says not clearly understood. The Pashas Afuruskum and Beshasim Akumt Absura Teva Begnatzole V'Shichor, simply it comes out when you get good news that you're saved, you're freed. Darf man zum allem Menschen danken dem Eibischen der Ruf. So the first thing you do is you thank Hashem for that. And then you could ask for the next, for future, what should happen. So it would make more sense would fit more that the first Maimer should Baruch Hagem L'Chayom Tevus, which is thanking Hashem for the past. The next Maimer, after that, you will continue asking Hashem also for the future. Why was it that he did it differently? First, he said the Maimer Avai Lebeis Manyer B'Seinai, and then he said the Maimer Baruch Hagem L'Chayom Tevus Shekmelani Tev. But you could really say it's not a good answer, but you could have answered, he can't machen the Baruch Hagem. Since when the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe, heard the good news, he still could not make the bracha hagemel. Since he was not actually free yet, it wasn't the situation for sure that he left the danger. And the Alter Rebbe says in Birchas Hananin that you only make the bracha after you went out of the danger completely, and he wasn't. So you couldn't say the bracha hagemel. The Father is da nicht mit Massen given to sagen, mein Machzidus am Maskal Baruch hagemel. So that's why it doesn't fit that he should say a Maimer Baruch hagemel, because he couldn't say the bracha Baruch hagemel then yet. So the first thing he did, he said the other Maimer. But as far as it's not such a good answer. You need to understand. That's for sure. That as soon as you hear the good news, even before you have halacha right to make the bracha, you still have to praise Hashem. So he could have said a maimer that's thanking Hashem and not start nicht mit dem Baruch Hagem, not Baruch Hagem, because Baruch Hagem is connected to the bracha. Since he couldn't make the bracha, he couldn't start Baruch Hagem. So he could have said a maimer which is praise for what Hashem did to him, that he is freeing him, got the news to be freed, with a different pasuk. And the Rebbe in Orah 10 brings, there's a letter from the Friedrich Rebbe from that day, that the Friedrich Rebbe starts off by saying, Heidel Hashem we thank Hashem because he's good and forever is his kindness. So he could have started a maimer with that pasuk. But the idea is to say a maimer first that praises Hashem for what happened. So certainly that should come before you ask something that should happen. Certainly before the main thing of the posik Havai Lebezer is the second half. The future, I will see something concerning my enemies. So for sure you thank Hashem first and then you say that. So you should have said the Maimer, thanking Hashem for the good news that he got. Why did he first say the Baruch HaGemel and first Havai Lebezer and then the Baruch HaGemel? Then the Rebbe says like this. The Etzem Gula from Rebbe is going on Nes Godel. You should know the Rebbe says that in addition to the redemption of the Rebbe, which was a great miracle, in connection to that, there were many, many individual miracles. So there's amongst the miracles that happened, besides the Geula itself, there was one thing that happened, was at the time, no one paid attention to this miracle. That now, after many years, and now we're calm and quiet, now when we start thinking about it, now we realize what kind of big miracle that was. That had no hold nature, something beyond nature completely. A miracle happened in connection to the Friedrich Rebbe's Geula. And das is, what was that miracle? And that explains it like this. They say that in Medina, he is the order of the way things are in that country. That the people who live in that country are followed and looked after by the government. That's the situation now. That means when the Rebbe said the Sikha, it was Tovshin Chavov 1966, the situation was like that. And even when the Sikha was printed, which is in Tovshin Memdal in 1974, no, 1974, right? No, 1984. It still was like that. That what? That the government looked after every person. Certainly in that time, in time of the Friedrich Rebbe, certainly in connection to being imprisoned, that concerning that, the rest of the Friedrich Rebbe, they searched everything. And they looked with, it's an expression, 7 eyes. They looked clearly after everybody. They looked at everybody. They spied on everybody who had any connection to the Friedrich Rebbe. Und von deswegen, and still, bald wie sie in Sparsen geworden haben, hat dem Rebbe arrestiert, as soon as became known that they arrested the Rebbe, haben dort sämtliche Reden sich hereingeworfen, in verschiedene Pulos und in Stadtlos haben sollen befreien. So tens of Jiden threw themselves in doing all kinds of things and all kinds of trying to do that they should free the Rebbe. Und haben sich nicht gerechnet damit, was sie werden noch gespielt. And they didn't care, despite the fact that they knew that they're being spied on. Haben nicht geguckt auf die Sekundenstücke, was einer damit verbunden. They didn't pay attention, didn't care about the danger results that are connected to this, with what they're doing. So haben das getan begoli, they did it openly. Bis zu schicken Brief mit Seir Nemen. They sent letters, signing their own names. Und noch more than that, wenn sich alleine die Memschol-Amten, welche seine gewähren verantwortlich für einen Psaq-Din und sich im Stadtl gewähren zu bewirken sei, they actually turned themselves to different people, government officials, that were responsible for this verdict that they gave and trying to influence that. So they did a lot, and they did it openly. And this was very dangerous. And after that, and after knowing all that, we see something wondrous. Zwischen alle, welche haben sich im Stadel gewinnt besehen, ist nicht gewinnt kein ein einziger, was das hat ihm geschah bei Isaif Meshahu. That after all the things that they did, not one person of the people who were involved in trying to work and talk to the government about freeing the Rebbe, not one person was hurt because of this in no form. Nicht bedwaram an degen benefesh, nicht bedwaram an degen beguf, na viel nicht binyan shomam in panose. Nothing that has to do with nefesh, with life, nothing that has to do with the nefesh means with the soul, with the feeling, nothing that has to do with the body, nothing has to do with money, nothing panose. Because in other words, in Russia, the way the things were and even later years, that anything that you did that was not in the liking of the government, right away they could send you to jail, they could kill you, they could take away your livelihood, they could do everything. And nothing happened. Not to one of the people who were involved in openly trying to help the Frierdiker Rebbe. True, the Gemara says in Psochim, the Rebbe brings the Shulchan Aruch, that if you're a shliach, you do a mission of a mitzvah, you will not be hurt. So that could be the answer. They're doing a mitzvah, so not hurt. So Rebbe said that's not an answer in this case. The Gemara says, as is that in a case where it's a common thing that there will be damage done, we don't say this rule that because you're a shliach mitzvah, you'll not be hurt. And in this case, it was definitely completely shlicha zeike. For these people, it's complete 100% shchicha zeike that the danger and the damage that could happen was definitely common, and even more than that. And nevertheless, nothing happened. Noch mehr is the pelle. The wonder is even more. In the Zman Kedem HaMaaseh, but there is a Lachar HaMaaseh, in the time before the arrest, the time after the arrest. Seine Gewinn Azelche was a Verbindung mit dem Balagula, hat sie geschat begashmis. There were people that because they were connected to the Frierdiker Rebbe, who's the Balagula from Yudbeis Tamuz, so these people had connection. It hurt them. It brought them into danger. People who, before the arrest, after the arrest, the Gashmis, they were hurt. The Ruchni is the Verbindung sei sicher meile gewen Hecher und Schleiberach. The Ruchni is for sure. The connection to the Rebbe elevated them, was good for them, in such a very, very special way. Schleiberach. Aber the Gashmis haben sie gelitten, but they suffered. The Gashmis, they suffered. So that's all. But they get other things that they did that had a connection to the Frierdiker Rebbe, that they were hurt because of their connection. But when they worked on trying to free Frierdiker Rebbe, bring the Geula, it did not affect in a negative way nobody, anybody. Even during the time when the Frierdiker Rebbe was in prison, before the ness of his being free and the Geula. When he was in jail, the danger was very, very strong. So even then, nothing happened to those people who were involved. During the time when the Frierdiker was in jail, which was the time when the danger was great, and certainly not after the Geula. Later, those people who were involved in trying to get him out, nothing happened to them, even the later times. Even after the Rebbe Frierdiker Rebbe left the country. You never know what could have happened. Then they could have started looking into it and seeing who did this, and they normally, in a natural way, they should have been hurt, and nothing happened. I could add, a shleimer as in a prat is dennes no aggressive with the neshel agula atzmo. In a certain aspect, this miracle is even greater than the miracle of the geula of the Friedrich Rebbe itself. Even looking from a natural way. Why? The geula from Rebbe is given a nes geula, even though the redemption of the Friedrich Rebbe was an open miracle. Nevertheless, it has a hold, and it was dressed into nature. Sie geben die Stadlos Darke Tebe durch Kama Noshe Bali Ashpo in der Medina Atzmo und der Chutzumdine. There was people were trying in a natural way, working on it. Many people who had influence trying to work. It was side people in the country, in Russia, side people outside of Russia. So there was, and then came the nest that he was freed. It's a big nest. But Lepel, there were people working on it in a natural way, and there were natural reasons that looks like that helped to bring the Gula. Concerning those that were mishtadel trying to work for the Rebbe. Certainly concerning those that went themselves to the offices of high-level offices. So beten dort, man soll der Rebbe befreien, to ask that they should free the Rebbe. In natural understanding, seichel anusha, human seichel, there was no way that this could not hurt them. This certainly should have hurt them. That's not the Gashmas. The way the situation was in Russia then, it's not possible that it shouldn't hurt them. That's the Gashmas. Also, from the Ruchnis, trying to explain why this is even a bigger miracle in a certain aspect than the Gula itself. Kemufen is the Gula von Rebbe given verbunden mit Schus von seinem Messias Nefesh, It's for sure that the reason the Friedrich Rebbe was freed is connected to the great schus he had, that he went on Messias Nefesh of spreading Torah, strengthening Yiddishkeit. Kosher with schusov is connected to the schus of his ancestors, no, from the other Rabbeim. He had many, many merits that Beruchnius caused that he should be freed. And nevertheless, he was redeemed, the Taka was freed, but it came after much suffering. And sitting in prison. The Ali Yisurim was gelitten dort. All the suffering he had there. The North of Hashikim, and then when they sent him in Kastrama, they sent him in exile. So he was free, and he had all the schusim, and he was free, and nevertheless he suffered. But these people who tried to work to do things to free the Rebbe. It included also people who did not have any Mesiras Nefesh for Torah mitzvahs. It included also people that in their personal life, they were not even from. They didn't keep Torah mitzvahs. So in belonging to the Meflogas, they belong to these parties, these Russian, the communist parties, whatever it is, they belong. And they also tried. So they didn't have these chusim. Und nachher pekein hat ihre Stadler sei nicht geschat. Sie durchgegangen auf glatten Nefen. Still, whatever they did not hurt them in any form or shape. It went through very, very smooth. And that's even a bigger miracle than the Geula itself. That's something very special. So maybe you could say, Adosa der Rebbe gepeil, oder Mavai gewinn, oder beide zusammen, that this should be, that nothing should happen to those people who work for him. The Friedrich Rebbe peiled it through saying the Maimer, or explained it by saying the, or maybe both things, that he did that by right after he got the news that he's going free, he said the Maimer and Beir from Posek Havai Lebeizri. He said the Maimer, which starting with the Posek Havai Lebeizri, which as the Rebbe will explain it, this will be the answer why the first Maimer is said with this one, because he wanted to accomplish that nothing should happen to these people, and that was accomplished and explained by this Maimer of Havai Lebeizri. How? So the Rebbe explains it like this. Right in the beginning of Maimer, the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe, talks about the Loshen of the Posek Havai Lebeizri, that Hashem is amongst the ones that helped me. The Friedrich Rebbe asked the Kashe. At first glance, it seems that in these words mean to say, a person has many helpers, and Hashem is amongst them. When he says, Havai li be'ezri, means he's amongst the helpers. How could I say? But the Rebbe said that the truth is not like that. The truth is, as that's what he says in the Maimer. As ein eid milvade, there's nothing but him. V'raghul levade hu yisbarach habeire. Only the Eibush, he's the creator. Ve'ezel b'chol ashalei, and he's the one, only one that helps in everything that happens. But because of a Rambam, he quotes the Rambam right from the beginning of Rambam, where it says Yeseda Amud HaChochmas Leide Sheish HaMotzirishin, the foundation of all foundations, the pillar of all wisdom is to know that there is a first being. V'chol hanimtzoim, and all beings. They nimtzu elam come only from the true being of him. That's what he says in the Maimah. So really, it's not that he's amongst the helpers. He's the only helper. Sof Maimah farent with the Rebbe. So at the end of the Maimah, the Rebbe says in parentheses, he gives an answer. What does it mean? He's amongst the helpers. As Ezri koila beruram amizbarim shema ezim ramitim shalodam. That the word ezim, my helpers, means that when you do good things, you make your mevarer birurim. In other words, there are holy sparks that are there. That when you do good things, you create, you elevate these birurim, these nitzutzes. They are the true helpers of a person. Just like it says talmidim, students are called children, and the Rebbe will later explain the connection of these words. What do the words mean here? But that's what the Frierdiker Rebbe writes. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, "Habai lebi ezri meint." What does it mean that Hashem is in the helpers? As mispeil as gamba ezrim yegi Hashem havaya. You cause that even those that help you, which also goes on the birurim, that havaya should be there. In other words, it's not that Hashem is one of the helpers among the helpers. He is in the helpers. That means that whatever the helpers are, whichever way we touch, whether the simple helpers or the birurim that you have, and they help you, but the Eibush is within them. Their help is only because the Eibush is within them. That's how it helps. And therefore we'll explain it a little more in details later on. But this is what the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the Maimah. Yeshleimer, so you could say the Rebbe says, that by doing this, the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted to give a psak din. From Teire, psak din of Teire. And then in a Teire, a Maimer Chassidus, which is Pnimis HaTeire. In Teire, psak din in a Maimer Chassidus, which is Pnimis HaTeire, was wird angerufen Chochmas Emes. We know in Svarim it's called Pnimis HaTeire, the inner part of Teire is called Chochmas Emes. So this shows more the truth. So the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted to pale by saying this, a psak din in Teire, and not in Stam in Teire, in Teire's Chochmas Emes, which is the real truth. And in the Orah 60 star, the Rebbe says that's why the Rambam, the Frierdiker Rebbe brought in the Maimah from the Rambam. You say this because the Rambam is a Sefer Halacha, so he wanted to bring a Halacha, a Psak Din, to what he's going to say. He wanted to make a Psak concerning all those people who were Mishtadel, who worked on getting them free. To say that first glance, it looks like they were the helpers. They were human beings who tried to help. They were helpers at a time when there was an open, clear danger, naturally, for anybody who helped. So they need great merits in order to be protected from this, to be helped. They should be helped, that there should be no trace of any problem that could happen to them. So that's what it looks like. That's what it was. So the Frierdiker Rebbe writes that even though these were helpers, and helpers looking like helpers in the time of danger. So the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in the beginning of the Maimer, the emes is, the truth is, as ein eid milvade, there's nothing but Hashem. V'raghul levade hu yisbarach habeire, ve'ezel leidebish, as the creator, he's the only one that helps. Does he given der ezer nor von hu levade hu. The helping was from Hashem only. In other words, explaining that they cannot be hurt, because they're not the help, as much as it looked that they're helpers, and therefore the shaykhs, they should be in danger. No, it's all the Eibishter, but maybe it can be in danger, as the Rebbe will explain. That means like this, and them following this time it was revealed, and the Frierdiker Rebbe revealed it through saying this Maimer, as dos is blazed that Ezer from Hulavadihu, that this help is only from the Eibishter himself. And actually, you saw that the Gila in the open way by the people who help. All those that were Mishtadel, that tried to do all kinds of things to help the Rebbe, they did not do it because they calculated. They had a calculation, they calculated in their mind, and they had hope that this is going to work. Everyone who was involved put his life on the line, and didn't care about anything. They went on all kinds of dangerous roads. Maybe they could make the imprisonment lighter, easier, or even maybe to help to bring to the Gula. This is how they actually went. In other words, the Rebbe is speaking here from facts. Besides the Rebbe was there then. The Rebbe was part of it. So the Rebbe knows the fact that the facts with all these people did not care. They did not try. They made a cheshbon that, yeah, probably if I do this, it'll help. They didn't do it. They did whatever was able to be done. They did. And here, what they are, their own being, their own identity, their own being, did not mean anything. And whatever they did, you could see in a revealed way that it's not their help. The Rebbe is doing it. You could see from the way they worked. In other words, the Rebbe was there and they saw that the way they were working made no sense how they did it. And they did it. And the Rebbe said before that even people who are not so frum also did it with Mesiras Nefesh. So we understand very simply why it didn't hurt anybody in no form. I feel nicht better even after that. When the Flieger was out already, maybe even after the Flieger left the country, maybe then they could have gone back to the people who were involved, etc., etc. They didn't. Why not? Because the real help that they did was not they. It was the help from the true being, which is the Eibishter. So nothing could harm there. If it's the Eibishter, nothing could harm that. That's why nothing was. And the Friedrich explained that in the beginning of this Maimer, the first Maimer he said. Noch more than that. The Rebbe says even more. You don't even need a miracle that it shouldn't harm anybody. Naturally, nothing could affect in a negative way the Eibishter. And this, what they were doing, was the Eibishter within them. It was the Eibishter doing. So how could it harm? So it comes out as if you think deeply in truth, they weren't even in danger. They didn't put themselves in a danger. If it would be danger, then you need a big miracle to be saved. This wasn't be'emes. Looking back, it wasn't a danger. That who did this help? The Eibishter himself. It went through this person, the other person. So there's no place that it could hurt anybody, no form or shape. In them follows this is the nature. The nature is that if it's the Eibishter helping, nothing could hurt. And that's why, so it wasn't even danger and there wasn't even a miracle. Because if it would be a danger, so then there's a question. Now, Oris 19, the Rebbe says, and he said, this really was not a danger, but had it been a danger, there would be a question if we're allowed to do it. The Rebbe brings here that there's a big discussion if a person is obligated to put himself into a possible danger to save another Yid. He brings from the Bach, Bes Yosef and the Bach, etc. And the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch brings both opinions. And the Alter Rebbe says, Sofik nefashos lohakol. You have to be mekel. And Hilchas Shabbos, he says, like the second opinion, that you should not go into a Sofik sakona. If you're going to put yourself in the possible Sofik, maybe, danger, to save somebody else, you don't have to go in. And in this case, the Rebbe continues and he says, here it was not just a Sofik sakona. Anybody who got involved in this was more than a regular Sofik, maybe you'll be in danger. It was more closer to a Vadai danger. And the second thing, that's from the side of the danger. On the other hand, from the success side that it'll work, so the Rebbe says it was very big Sofik doubt whether it'll be successful. Knowing what was going on in the country, in Russia at that time, under that government, it was a big Sofik. And so therefore, it's not even clear that in this case, you should go into a Sofik sakona to help somebody. But the Rebbe says here, but in this case, it wasn't like that. Because since it was the Gilu de Eibishter, so there's no sakona. There's no Sofik sakona. And Mamela, there's no sakona, there's no miracle. And that's why nothing happened to them, because it was all the Eibishter. And then the Rebbe says, but we have to explain something else. According to this, they don't deserve any reward. Because the help that they did is related not to them. It's related to Amiti Simotze, to the Eibishter, which is nothing but him. So they don't get rewarded at all. But we know the Eibusher doesn't hold back the reward of any creature, not only people, even animals. The Gemara says that did something good, the Eibusher gives them reward. Certainly, when it comes to those who gave their life, put their life on the line, all the things that they tried to do to free the Rebbe and to bring the Gula. So for sure, Schorim is God grace. Their schar is very big. The reward is very big. But how does it fit to what we said, that it's not really them? Those who are born the Rebbe in safe Maimer. That's what the Rebbe explains in the end of the Maimer. Whereas Mefaraj and Loshon Havai Lebeizri, in the end of the Maimer, the Friedrich Rebbe explains what is the meaning of Havai Lebeizri as Ezri and the Birurim Amizbarer. And like we said before, the Ezri, who are the helpers? The Birurim were Yimavarer. But this is al derech steht in Mishnah as Eise Mitzvah Kenyan Lepraklit. This is similar to what it says in the Mishnah that if you do a mitzvah, you get yourself a defender. Which means from their mitzvah, b'ashafna malach v'selfim. Every mitzvah, you create a malach, an angel that helps you. So that's what the Rebbe says there. Friedrich Rebbe says in the Maimer. Eich is the Rebbe then by Mesiv, and then the Rebbe adds, as we said before, Val derech hatalmidim shenikroim bonim. Just like talmidim, students are called children. Chure, was for a shaykh as a dead Indian as talmidim werden angerufen bonim? It's a minyan from the Havai Lebeizri. What connection does these words have that talmidim are called children to when he's explaining what Havai Lebeizri means? He says Havai Lebeizri means the Birurim. It's the Malachim or the Birurim that are created by the good things that you did. And then he says that Talmidim are called Bonim. What's the Negeh? So the Rebbe explains, no, is the Rebbe Madgish, with these few words, the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe explains, Ader Pirush from Be'ezri Bleibtech Kipshute. He wants to say like this. It seems like the Friedrich Rebbe says that Be'ezri, Havai Lebe'ezri doesn't refer to people who helped. This goes to something else, the Birurim that helped. So the Rebbe says, no, he's trying to tell us the simple pshat remains that Ezri goes on those people who are, as is on the Faran Ezim Rabbi. Keilul Ezim Kipshut, a lot of helpers, including those that physically went to help. The Eden geholfen, the Eden that helped him. Now, what happened to the Eden who helped him? Well, their Midzayin sie geworden Talmidim verbunden. So they became his Talmidim because they're trying to help him, so they're his Talmidim. The Mele became his children. Zeh seinen Ezri, their Ezri. What does that mean? That we're saying that they became his children, so they're doing it. So they do get reward. We would think they don't, but he's saying no, they remain, that they're doing it and they should get reward. For since every Yid has free choice, given to Ton the Ishtadlis, and they chose to do this Ishtadlis, to do these things that they tried to do. Ezri. So they are called helpers. Their father full schar, they get the full schar. So that's what the Friedrich Rebbe brings the Maimed, that it means the Birurim, but it also means the Talmidim, which are the people who actually helped, and they get schar. To them as a schreibt in das and it's still not a contradiction to what he said before, that he brings in the beginning of the Maimer as that's nothing but Hashem, and he is the one that created, and he's the only one that helped. So he says, it's a contradiction what we're saying now, that he's telling us that they are helpers. When we said before that they're not helpers, that's what he said in the beginning of the Maimer. The Eibusher is doing it. So he says, Hashem is in the helpers, meaning the attachments of Maimer, like we said in the end of the Maimer, as in the Ezim zon leichten agil shemavaya, in the people help, they are taka helpers. But what we said before, it's only the Eibusher, but the Eibusher is within them. The says that the uftuer from the Meiser is the Ravaya. The one that accomplishes what you're supposed to help, that's the Eibusher. But his Meir in Ezri, he shines within the Ezri. In other words, it comes out, he's trying to tell us there's both things. We give them the credit, what they did. And at the same time, it was Hashem Begilu in them, and that explains why nothing happened to them, because if it's Hashem in them, nothing happened. Nevertheless, they get the schar, and the Friedrich Rebbe tried to say that. The Shleimer, Ados der Tamfa, was the Rebbe Magdim given, Sogen der Maimer, Vai Libeisi, Far der Maimer Baruch HaGemel. This explains the reason why the Rebbe said first, the Maimer of Vai Libeisi, before the Maimer Baruch HaGemel, which he asked in the beginning of the Sikha, that L'chure, first, he should have had the Maimer Baruch HaGemel thanking Hashem for what happened. Then he'll talk about Havai Libeizri, Vani Ere B'Seinei. Now we understand why. Weil zum Allemesh dafen beavorenen, as von dem Teivshik Mulani soll nicht herauskommen, an ihnen schleike de Boye bat zweiten. The first right away, you have to make sure that nothing negative should come out from the good that Eibusher did to him. Because it's possible that he was saved, and people tried to help, but because of that, other people will be hurt. So the first thing that once nothing that's not good should happen to somebody else. Certainly for those who tried, worked in trying to save him. Not only nothing negative should happen, nothing should hurt them, the full schar should get the whole schar. So that's why he said it first, right away, before anything else, before the saying Baruch HaGemel. Since the beer and the maimer is what we said before, to show that they are not really the helpers, because it's Leib. On the other hand, they get schar for helping. That's the first thing I'm going to say. But in order 26, the Rebbe asked, so why did he wait till he got he was told that he's being freed as after the Gula? Why didn't he say it before? If you want him Avona, so he should have said it even before he was freed from jail. So the Rebbe says, because what the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted to pale in the world, that this should come down, lepel mamish, in actuality, in reality. So this is shayches only when they already started, that the keich of Klippe was already weakened by him getting the idea that he's being freed, only then he said it. But in other words, the Rebbe says it much clearer. He says here that the Gula of the Frierdiker Rebbe, that brought the Gula to everybody else. So the connection, this Maimer, the Rebbe says about the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer, that is bringing out the Gula for the others, mean that they shouldn't be hurt, is connected to his Gula. And this happened after he said the Maimer. So it's connected to his Gula, because it's a part of his Gula. But this Maimer that he said worked lemifreya even the time before the Gula, since it was said in Torah, and Torah is l'maylam and higher in the Zman, and he brings that eye from Yerushalmi, when we find Torah is higher in the Zman, higher in time. But mainly he's like I said it then. Why did he say it then? Because it connected to his Gula, the Gula for the others. But when he said it, it helped even for before. So before also no one got hurt because of what's going to happen later, because Torah is higher in the Zman. But the way Chassidus explains that Torah could work before him, brother Yerushalmi, but mainly he said it then. But he said it right away as soon as the Gula happened, before another Maimer. Then the Rebbe continues. In them Maimer and Albit Chalose, Nordem with the Rebbe Stolzich of Ascholos Akos of Eidle Beizri. In this Maimer, in the beginning, after the Rebbe first explains Havayli Beizri, fragt if in zweiten Teil von Posig, when the Rebbe saying, then he asks the Shail on the second part of the Posig, where it says, I shall see my enemies. What does that mean? As we said before, Poshep Shat, I shall see the revenge, the nekoma that will happen to those who hate me. Favos Batman, Vania Rebbe saying is nekoma in the sonim. Why are we asking to see nekoma, to see revenge in my haters? Chura di bekosha gedar zayin should have asked, Adi Evim Musainim zal nepech ven liyav u'mekreivim, that the enemies should be transformed, should change to become people who like us, people close to us. Why asking to see revenge in them? The Rebbe is massive, and the Frierdiker Rebbe adds, Hagam the kol sinose shel David hoyirak l'seine avayed. David, who said this posik, is talking about those that hate the Eibishter. Mishikostav, it says, Halei misanecha havayes, no, those that hate Hashem, I hate. But miskememecha is skated. I'm going to argue against those who are against, get up against the Eibishter. So l'chura, that's what he means. So it's not revenge, personal revenge, because it's only those who are against the Eibishter, not because they're against him. The Frierdiker Rebbe says still, it says in Posik that sins should go away from the world. Romer Azal and the Chazal tell us, the Mora Brachas doesn't say the sinners should go away from the world, disappear. The sins should disappear. The sinners should do tshuva. So the question is, why did David HaMelech say, I want to see the nekoma in them? He should have said that they should do tshuva. So you could say, by this piece of the Maimer, the Frierdiker Rebbe was trying to explain something else in connection to his Gula, which that itself was in the first Maimer before Hagemel. This is something also. Just like we said, what we said before, that belongs before Hagemel, before the second Maimer. This point that the Rebbe is going to make now, which is part of the Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, also is before Hagemel. Not in the zweiten say the opposite side. Which means like this. Those that arrested the Frierdiker Rebbe, and they caused them pain. Not there's a physical pain, but also nafshetic pain from the soul. They disturb his service of Hashem. Certainly while he was in jail, he couldn't serve Hashem properly. They are definitely those who are hating Hashem. And those that you have to hate. The farvat l'chura gibe masim it would make sense as that after you come out victorious against them, so since they were against Hashem, they stopped him from serving Hashem. So they're against Hashem. You should see revenge in them simple way. Aninya from the Kama, real revenge. Not a personal revenge for what they did to him, but what we're doing to the Eibishter. So you should have wanted there should be in the Kama to them. He says, the Rebbe negates that. He says, no, that's not what we want. As I feel the together from the and even those that hate me, which means did things bad to the Rebbe, which really is going against Hashem. You should ask the Eibishter, not Posha, you should see revenge, simple revenge of them. No, he brought this in that it should be the end of their sins, not the sinners. You have to daven the sinners to do tshuva. And this is the connection between the two parts of the posuk. The first part of the posuk we said means, and the Havayli Beizri is that we feel Havaya, that the Ezer is not from them, it's from Havaya. Einid Milvade, only the Eibusher does it. When you know there's nothing but the Eibusher, he's the only creator. Says Havayli Beizri, that in the helpers you have Havaya. Then, when you know that, which is the other part that we said before, then the Hertman Emes, saying it. Then you really realize the truth, even in those that hated you and did negative things to you. Adosas me light from them saying that this that you suffer because of the enemy is not since you realize everything's for Hashem, but negate the helpers here on the other side. So the helpers is nothing but Hashem. But the ones that caused you the pain is also nothing but Hashem. It's not that they have a keach, they have their own power, chas v'sholem. Like it says in Tanya, Negeras HaKedesh, it says in Shimon ben Geri, it doesn't bring the name, but he says Shimon ben Geri cursed David HaMelech, and David HaMelech said, the Eibishter told him to curse. What do you mean the Eibishter didn't tell him to curse David? But the fact that he cursed is, everything happens from the Eibishter. So anything negative that happens to you, is the Eibishter wanted that to happen. So you can't look at them that they're doing something wrong. It's all from the Eibishter. So there's no place. Let's skip the parentheses for a second. You can't bring a feeling of revenge. You can move from the Negeras HaKedesh there. You understand? You look into that letter in Tanya, you could see from there that there's no reason for revenge, because revenge only if it's he and him doing it. Now, the fact that he has to be punished for whatever could be this, in Tanya explains. But the person who gets hurt has to look at the Eibush that is hurting him. It's not them. And that's what the Rebbe tries to say. When Ani Rebbe Seinai doesn't mean Ani Rebbe Seinai the revenge kipshute. It means Ani Rebbe Seinai that they will do tshuva. That's what he's asking. I recognize that whatever they did is because it came from the Eibishter. Just like the Ezrim came from the Eibishter here. So on the other side, what they did came from the Eibishter. It's also recognition, and this is the approach of where the Rebbe says, the Friedrich Rebbe, this is the union, that it all is from the Eibishter, and what you're looking is even not even revenge in them, only that the revenge will be, they'll do tshuva, because it's all from the Eibishter. So what is the meaning I should see b'seinai? So it doesn't mean revenge. Now it doesn't mean revenge even because of the Eibishter. But it doesn't mean revenge. So what does it mean, Ani Rebbe Seinai? Zog the Rebbe in Seif Maimer, so the Rebbe is at the end of the Maimer, that means like this. Bechdei lagia lebchinas riyah v'ani ere, k'maimer ezeh chocham areyes hanelet, hu al-yidei ha-menagetav k'beseinai. Ani ere means I will see. What's seeing? It says like this, ezeh chocham, the Chazal say, ezeh chocham areyes hanelet. Who's a chocham? The one that sees the future. That's called a chocham. Now, the Alter Rebbe teaches, what does that mean? That means to see the future doesn't mean the future person that knows the future, like a Novi knows the future. It means, Neilad, you see how everything is born. Yesh Me'ayin, you see how everything was created. Everything comes from Hashem. And here he teaches, Vani Ere, you will see Reyes HaNeilad, to see it. And in order 36, the Rebbe says, seeing is higher than hearing and understanding. So, it's a great madrege to see Reyes HaNeil, to see how everything is created from Hashem. That's a very high madrege. To reach that madrege, to be able to see it, seeing is believing, not believing. It's really true it's really true in your mind. To reach that madrege could only come when you have somebody doing some harm to you, if there's something negative and you overcome it, that's when you reach, this brings you to reach the Madrege of Riyah. So that's what he means. Ani ere b'seinei, through the seinei. What they did is, I have to look at it that came from the Eibishter. And why did the Eibishter do it? So I should reach a higher Madrege to see the Inyan of Avaya. So says it means like this. Not only that when you see these enemies, it does not bring out in the person the feeling of revenge, nor adarabe. The contrary. Is knowing that when you see a person who challenges you, an enemy, is something that came from above. And the zweite, and the second one who's against me, who's doing me harm, is only from the Eibishter. And as he quoted the pasuk, Havayomer likala, only the Eibishter told him the curse, even though he didn't tell, but it means it came from the Eibishter. So when you see that, what does it bring you to do? Not to look for revenge, to see what lesson is Hashem giving me. In der eigener Avede, what lesson Hashem giving me in Avede, in a level that I should see, something that I should see. When it comes to the maskana, and if you think about it, you come to the understanding. Ados is alt given to the grech na hechere dargen na vedes Hashem that all this happened for you to reach in a higher level in serving Hashem, the level of Riyah. Dafke nordem wie mit der Herr the Minya von Avayli be'ezer b'nere b'seine b'tachlis and vede protim, and only after we really feel the truth of the meaning of Avayli be'ezer b'nere b'seine completely, and both details. Sai b'negei Ezri, Sai on one hand that the helpers were only helpers, they were only Hashem. Usai b'negei Seinai, and Sai the enemies is al tzaninya von Avayli. It's all because Avayli while eined movade. When you feel that, then would come the shleimus. Then could come the second step that you really completely could say Baruch Hagem L'Shigmalani Teiv. You thank Hashem who did good to me. I'm at their heart. This is Gmalani from the Meibishter. Then you really feel the Meibishter. So now we understand they say that in the morning. First they said the Maimer Rabbi Leib and they had to say with all the biurim here to make sure that he's Megale and Paskans, that those that helped are only really Hashem, so they can't get hurt. And you realize that. And then the other part that I realize this, I don't need to comment this, but I realize that what they do is also only from Hashem and brings me to higher Madrege of Riyah. Now you could ask, after you realize all that, you can now really, really thank Hashem for what he did to you and make the Baruch HaGemel and say the Maimer of Baruch HaGemel. Let's come to up and take Gola, and this comes down and they revealed good. There's something good that is seen and revealed very low down here in this world. These Beloshen Arab, the Loshen of the Frierdiker Rebbe in the end of the second Maimer Baruch HaGemel, where he says, the Gamach Zike HaTeire Moshorim Uvrochem B'chol Teire. Those that keep Teire are also lucky and blessed in all good, meaning in all physical good. They get all good, Pepel Mamish, because you really realize the Baruch HaGemel that everything comes from Hashem.